Hello, and welcome to Admiral's Academia. We are at the Spring Medieval Academy today. So first and foremost, thank you to the organizers of this event for allowing me to teach at this event. It's much appreciated. Okay, if you are here in chat, if you could just say hello, maybe state your favorite color. Let's start with that. What's your favorite color? Let's see who's out there and what your favorite color is. Mine's dark red. Okay, our tech test has confirmed we're good. Solid color. Good stuff. Okay, so we're gonna just do a couple housekeeping things right off the bat. We're gonna post here in chat the link for credits for those that are attending this event today. Go ahead and fill out that form and grab yourself a credit. Okay. Other than that, how this class is normally structured is we go through, sorry, that's my cat, the what, and then the who, when, where, why, and how. So that's the structure. So that way you can know what's coming up next and be able to generally tell how long the class is going to be and kind of follow along as we're going. After we get done with the how, we'll open it up for questions. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the class, though. I love questions. I love answering questions. So please, by all means, throw any questions that you got at any point up there. Additionally, if you need anything repeated or rephrased, or you want me to go a little bit more in depth in explanation of something, please just type in chat and let me know. I'll be more than happy to do so. Other than that, if you could tag me in chat, that would really help me find the questions just a little bit easier, because a lot of folks will end up just going through and chatting with each other, which absolutely totally cool with. It's actually a lot of fun for me to watch y'all have crazy elaborate conversations in chat, so by all means, go for it. Have fun. Okay, this class is Performance in Amtgard. We're going to go over a whole plethora of different types of performance. We're going to go over some tips and techniques that can hopefully help you. These are now suggestions. These are things that may work for you, but by no means are they the end-all, be-all, do it this way or no way at all. Please understand that any technique and thing that you might be doing is something that's going to be very personalized to yourself, what works well for you. So if these do help you, fantastic, mission accomplished. But if they don't, try to find things that work kind of similar. They might just be even just a brainstorming thing to kind of help you, jump off of. Other than that, that's just sort of my disclaimer at the beginning of my classes. So other than that, I think we can get started. Okay. So what is this? What is this whole class? Now here's some types of performances that we do in Amtgard. Bardic performance. This is the type of performance where you're singing around a bonfire. Very casual for fun sort of performance. But we also have Dragon Master Bardic entries, some sort of form of ANS tournament type entries. The types of entries these is vocal performance, recitation, instrumental, and dance or movement. It might be categorized, that last one might be categorized under dance or movement depending on your kingdom. It's very important to check your kingdom's corpora to see which categories your kingdom has for bardic entries. It might vary from kingdom to kingdom and also from tournament to tournament. Some specialized tournaments will only have specific categories. They might have just a super general bardic and none of the subcategories. So again, anytime you're doing a tournament of any type, you want to make sure that you read the rules very carefully, understand how you have, what options you have to enter, and then figuring out what the best situation is going to be to enter under. Okay, next, feast entertainment. This is something that I think a lot of folks may not know is an option of things to do. So we're going to go into that a little bit more deeper as we go into the class, but it is a thing. And then we have roleplay. You're going to see this in two basic forms, PC and NPC. PC is player character. That is the character you portray. That is your standard character. You could have multiples, but you tend to play one at a time. And NPC, non-player character. This is the type of thing that you're going to see for like quests and scenarios and things like that. You might be playing a monster. You might be playing random peasant villager 3. Right? Insert name here, individual, lizard man, whatever the case might be, depending on the role that you're playing, what the quest writer or scenario creator role has you in. Okay, so that in a nutshell is basically what we're going to be covering, going a little bit more in depth about, and going over some tips and tricks again. Okay, again, if anyone has any questions at any time, write in chat. Okay, here we go. So who? It's important to know who's involved in these types of things in your relationships with those individuals as you go. So, performers. Now, this might be performer or performers, right? In this case, this might be you. This might also be you and an acting partner or an ensemble of performers. You can see this in duets, trios, quartets, insert numbers here. It might also just be who you're questing with, right? If you're doing RP, it might be if you're an NPC, who you are, who you're going, and what NPCs are coming to you. You might also be interacting with other NPCs, right? Your player character is going to come interact with you. Yeah, I think that's in a nutshell. In a nutshell, that's pretty much it. Oh, sorry. Also, if you are running shows and plays and things like that, then that's going to be the full ensemble. Every actor in that production that you're going to be working with, having any lines with, being on stage at the same time with, that's all people that you're going to be working with. The coordinator. If the coordinator is you, awesome. Super simple. That makes everything a lot easier. But there's going to be some times where you are not the coordinator. If you are performing at an event, even if you are the one that's like directing and producing the show, you'll have to deal with the autocrat. You want to make sure that you might also deal with the sitecrat. There's some other crats that you might have to deal with depending on who's covering that type of thing, right? It might be a color crat, right? Whatever the case might be. First talk to your autocrat, obviously. They'll know who you'll be directly under, and how to start that form of communication. Communication is going to be super, super essential. Basically, you're going to need to know the space that you're dealing with, the time that you're allotted, and everything in between. I think that's the biggest thing is just being able to know what areas you're allowed to be in, if you're allowed to use plugs for electric stuff. Are you allowed to be in an indoor space if there is an indoor space available, or are you forced to go outside, right? There's things like that you need to talk with the autocrat, and they'll talk with other crats. They might hook you up with those other crats to make those arrangements, to figure out jurisdiction and what you're allowed to do. If you are an NPC, your coordinator would most likely be the quest crat. They're going to be the ones that are going to give you your assigned role, tell you what your motivation is, what your task is, and any sort of character things that they might want to give you. They might give you literally just, you're playing a lizard man, and at some point give them an egg, right? Some random object, and that's it. That's all that they're going to give you. Right, so you're going to have to figure out what you're going to wear, what your name is going to be, what your backstory is. If you are dealing with other performers, right, other NPCs, what relationship your lizard man character now has with the rest of those individuals. There's a lot you can go through instead of just being like, the common misconception, I think the one thing that I see a lot that happens is you'll go into a quest and you'll ask an NPC their name and they'll go, I don't know what my name is. Do I have a name? Right? Like, it breaks everything right then and there. All the immersion just gone. So it's super, super important that you do actually go through and pick out all those things. Again, we're going to go into that a little bit later. Audience. Audience is the most crucial thing here because performers need somebody to perform to. What we're doing as performers is for the audience. It's for their entertainment. So you're going to want to be doing things that have the audience in mind. Okay. I think that pretty much covers the who. I just saw, oh my gosh, Admiral in Natural Daylight. How? It's very strange, and I'm trying to get used to it. I don't think I've actually done any of my classes in daytime before, so this is very strange for me. That's true. Also, for those that are new to my classes, please feel free to hydrate along. Hydration is very essential, even for performers. I think, especially for performers, especially if you're doing any vocal performance, if you're in a quest, you're running around a lot, all sorts of things like that, hydration is very important. Okay, so when are these types of performances most likely going to be happening? Bardics are going to happen at Bardics. Bardic is going to be the type of thing, right, again, like I said before, where you have a bunch of folks that are around a campfire. They're at an event. It's a very low-key, fun sort of hangout time. They don't tend to be competitive. They tend to be very relaxed and very much entertainment-based. You'll see a lot of vocal pieces. Sometimes you'll see instrumental accompaniment. Sometimes you'll see just instrumental performances, though they are typically rare. And for ones that they do happen often, there's just not a lot of them, right? They usually have like one person at the Bardic that plays like an instrument solely instead of doing some sort of accompaniment. For ANS tournaments, the types of tournaments that you're going to see is like Dragon Master tournaments, Crown Qualls, and other specialized types like Best of the Best, Starfall Invitational. Oh goodness, Golden Veil has a specific one too. I think it's Iron Griffin, right? There's every kingdom has a specific thing that they do, and then you'll also have folks that will run tournaments that aren't a part of the calendar. They aren't a part of even just like The Office, right? You might get something totally different, like the Whoop-de-doo tournaments that I run, right? Out of the blue randomness for those that need Crown Qualls up in our kingdom, because we do Crown Qualls a little different. So you're going to see all sorts of different styles of tournaments that will have Bardic entries part of them. Now you might, again, right, you might end up in a tournament that specifically doesn't allow Bardic performances. So again, make sure you read the rules very, very, very carefully, because you don't want to practice something for 4 months, be so prepped and ready to do this tournament, and it's like masterwork kind of craziness, and you show up and you go, all right, when's my time slot? And they're like, there's no Bardic performance in this tournament. And you go, what? Why? And then you're like, did you read the rules? And you go, no. And then you're just like, crap. So avoid that. Okay. Again, right, for feasting entertainment, obviously that will happen during feast. Now, it might happen during food prep. It might happen in the between time of people eating and court. You'll see that one a lot when everyone has their food and they're just eating. Sometimes you'll just have some type of performance while they're eating, and then court will happen. It might also be like after court. It might be during cleanup. It might be everything's clear, you've got the space, and there's nothing else happening on the schedule for the rest of the night. It's going to be super, super dependent, right? Again, you're going to want to talk with the autocrat, you're going to want to talk with the feastcrat, the officers who are running court, figure out the timing of your production, or if you're like an ensemble of bards that are just doing like a bunch of songs that are, again, feasting entertainment, where like we're gonna keep going, we're just gonna have songs until you tell us to stop, right? Where it's just, okay, feast isn't ready, we need to waste half an hour, hey bards, what do you got? And they go, okay, let's go. And it's just like, just tell us when to stop, just tell us when, we're just gonna keep going, nope, just tell us. That's the thing. So again, that's going to be super dependent on the situation. You might end up, right, being in a totally different scenario, like some of the shows I've done in the past, where it's literally a production, it's a show, it's a play, where you have like half an hour of a show, and you know exactly how long it is, you know exactly the space you need, you know the people that you need, and you've planned out with the staff of the event way ahead of time, and it is a pre-established thing that is part of the schedule. It is a pre-planned thing that everyone knows, okay, this is happening, it is happening at this time, it is happening for this long, it is happening in this location. Or again, you're gonna have something that's gonna be completely improvised, where it's just like, oh god, we're panicking, do something, entertain, things will vary. Okay, so, and again, for roleplay based things, you're gonna see those types of things in quests. You're gonna see them in scenarios. These might be scenario battle games where folks are in character, or things like OpenRP. Okay, so that is the when. Where do these things happen? Performances typically are in 3 types of things. You've got your indoor, your outdoor, and online. So things to consider for each of these. Indoor. If you are doing this at a time where there isn't light or there are no windows in the building, you have to figure out lighting. If it's some enclosed thing and there are no lights at all, and you have to bring your own lights. If there's no electricity in this indoor space, these are all things that you need to consider. You might even need to base your performance or your show around not having those things. It might mean that there's only certain points in time where you can actually do these performances. If you are a autocrat for a Dragon Master tournament, and there are bardic performances, you need to consider the space that you're giving them and if they have light. That's like super, super crucial. The benefits now to indoor stuff is that you don't have to deal with weather, right? If it's gonna rain, if it's gonna hail, and there's lightning and all sorts of stuff. This is my cat Trey. Hi, buddy. Then indoor is going to be great because you're not going to have to deal with elements. You're not going to have to deal with delays or even canceling your show, or any sort of damage to items that don't do well getting wet, right? Certain fabrics can't get wet. If you have all of your cast members in types of fabric that can't get wet, all of a sudden you can't do that show outside in the rain. If you have any sort of electrical element, right? If you have lights or sound things that are based with electronic devices, then all of a sudden you can't do that out in the rain. So those are absolutely benefits to the indoor space. I will say for prep for those that are performers in indoor spaces, make sure that you have time in the place that it will be happening. Right, again, even if this is the Dragon Master tournament, even if this is a show that you're putting on, whatever the case might be, for those that have any type of movement based things in your performance, could be as simple as just walking, just going from one side of the stage to the other at any point, any sort of walking. But especially for those that have movement performances, dances, understand the floor that you have to work with. Performing on concrete is extraordinarily different than performing on grass or dirt or gravel. AstroTurf is going to be super different. There's a gym floor. It's going to be super different. If you do know ahead of time, right, and you're able to find a practice space that mimics that, then you're gold. You are solid. That's obviously the best case scenario, right? If you are going to be in an indoor area that has a rug, right, practicing and performing on a rug at home, if you have a rugged floor, that is going to be to your benefit. You also are going to want to consider footwear, the type of shoe that you're going to wear in that space, because again, some dance shoes are going to be more appropriate for certain spaces than others. If you're doing any type of other thing, right, whether you have like a flat sole or if it has any sort of grip, that's going to vary very differently between the floor spaces and how it's going to react, and if you're going to be slipping and sliding or just hard stop and tripping all over your right over your feet and onto your face. You don't want that. That's really bad. So avoid. So those are some things to consider for indoor. For outdoor, indoor, another thing is ventilation. It can get very, very hot or very, very cold, depending on what you have going on in there. If it's the middle of July or August in most places, and there's no air conditioning in an indoor space, that's going to affect your performance. You might get overheated, you might get dehydrated, you might get super dry. That's going to be a thing. It's going to be something that you're going to have to work with and make sure that you are medically prepared and set to do that, so that you don't end up in a bad situation. Now, quite the opposite can be a thing too. If there's like really heavy AC on, that could also be bad. Then it could be like super cold in there. For those that do any sort of movement pieces, right, you can get all sorts of muscle pulls and tears and all sorts of damage if your body gets locked up. So stretching is going to be a big thing, and also keeping warm, right? You might want to, if you have like a costume or something like that, you might want to wear like a warm-up suit, something like that. In our, situation, maybe like a cloak or something of that nature, surcoat, whatever you got, just to make sure that you're staying warm and limber, so that you don't end up injuring yourself when you have like a thin dance costume with exposed skin on your arms or maybe legs or something like that, where you're gonna just tense up and pull something because it becomes too cold inside. So those are all sorts of things that you want to be prepared for, you want to be ready for, and do things accordingly to those specific spaces and scenarios. Okay, so that's indoor. Outdoor. Again, right, the ground is going to be super, super big on this, right? If you are, again, right, I think dancers get hit the hardest with this sort of thing, any movement performers. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Indoor, you're going to deal with reverb. You have walls. Your voice, your sound, if you're doing any sort of vocal, even recitation, your sound's going to bounce off the walls. It might have this beautiful resonating, just like you're in a cathedral, sort of, just the sound is awesome. You might be in a weird situation where you have like padding on the walls, where like a sound studio thing. For those that have seen those before, it kind of looks like egg crates on, like, I don't know, it's really weird. So again, right, just, you're going to want to go and try to practice in the space just so that, you know, it doesn't throw you off when you're performing, that you can get used to it, and you can deal with things like echo and stuff like that. You don't want to just go in completely unprepared, never trying it, never hearing it, and all of a sudden it just throws you really bad. So, sorry. Moving back out to outdoor. Depending again on where you are, right? If you're in a weird spot where like there are walls and things like that, from buildings, you might end up getting a weird echo reverb thing. Or you might like have it be where your sound just sounds like it ends right here, where it like doesn't project at all, where you need to project, that you need to, you know, use your breath support and really get that sound out there. Your sound can get really lost when you're doing things outside. That's a big thing. So again, you want to practice that. You want to go in knowing that you're going to have to be louder than you normally are, right? If you've been practicing in your apartment for 6 months, and all of a sudden you have to do this out in a wide open field, that's going to be very different. It's going to be a very different sound, a very different feel for you. So that will affect things. Right, again, just doubling back to that ground area, right? You might be on gravel, you might be on dirt, mud, sand, grass. All of these things are going to be super, super affecting your performance. Any type of thing, even if you are walking, doing any sort of blocking whatsoever, this can affect things. So your footwear, again, crucial outdoor as well. And especially if weather is a thing, weather is going to drastically affect the ground. Wet grass, you're going to be sliding. Wet mud, you're going to be getting stuck. There's all sorts of things that just, right, you might end up where you have to do a performance in a puddle because they just have nowhere else to put you. You never know. You just never know. Prepare as best you can. Know that things are possible. Expect the worst, hope for the best. Sometimes you'll get lucky and be in a good situation and it works out great. Sometimes you get some sort of situation where it's just like, this is the worst possible thing that could have happened, and here we are. And you gotta not let that throw you, and you gotta just push through that performance regardless. I'm gonna say just performing 101 is just be prepared always. Be adaptable, and don't let your audience see it. Don't break character, don't acknowledge it, just keep going, stay in character, and don't let them see your stress, your panic, because yeah, it'll break immersion immediately if you just go, oh no, I am standing in mud, oh shoot, look at that, dang, right? Like, for a mime performance, that's really bad. Right? You don't want to be miming and then just be like, oh dang, look at that, the mud on my boot. Kind of defeats the purpose of the miming. So, right, outdoor. Weather is going to be a thing. Outdoor also, light. That's going to be a thing too, right? If you're doing a daytime performance, you're set. If you are doing a nighttime performance and all of a sudden the sun, it sets and you might not be at an event that has ditch lights. What do you do? Right? You're going to have to bring your own lighting. You also have to go, okay, do I have a plug? Is there an outlet that I can use to do this? Do I need to bring, 70 million extension cords to pull this off? right? Because you might have electricity, you might have a wall, but it might not be close enough to what you're doing. So extension cords are going to be your best friend, for sure. But you gotta know the type of extension cord that you need. If it's going to be right a cheap dollar store one where like it only has the 2 plugs, it doesn't have like the 3rd hole. All of a sudden that's not going to be useful to you because depending on your light, right, you might need a 3-pronged thing. Things just you want to be prepared for. Just expect that these are going to be things. If you can do stuff with battery powered things, understand that let's say you're using a phone for any type of thing. You might be using it for background music, you might be using it as a light, whatever the case might be. Consider that you might be at a camping event where there is nowhere for you to recharge your batteries. If your performance is on day 2 or 3 of the event, you might have completely blown through all of your power on your phone before your performance ever starts, right? And a phone, you're not going to just have a battery like a 2 AA's that you can just, stick in new ones. So that's going to be a thing. That's something that you want to prepare for. There's also these nifty charger pack things that you can get. Make sure that you charge them ahead of time before you go to the event. Because I've done that before where I've had them and they weren't charged and I go and use them and they did nothing for me, obviously. So that's going to be something you want to consider. If you do have some sort of lighting or sound thing that you can use batteries for, make sure you have extra batteries. Even if you're just like, no, I got new batteries, it's fine. Or I've only used this thing a couple of times. It's totally going to work for a 5-minute performance. Bring spares just in case. You never know what's going to happen. If you lose them, if something gets damaged or misplaced, it's just best to have a backup with like everything that you've got. Figure the first thing has a good probability of not working out. So just be prepared for a secondary thing. It's just going to leave a lot of things. It'll be less stressful for you if things go wrong. You'll have a backup plan. You'll be prepared for it. Because anything going wrong before your performance is going to be something that's going to get stuck in your head, and that's going to throw your performance, right? At all times, you want to do stuff that's going to make these situations easier for you to handle and deal with, and enjoy. I think that's the biggest thing. Even if you're doing some competitive performance thing, you want to enjoy it. You don't want to hate every moment of your performance. If you do, then that's a whole nother thing that we need to address at a different point. And there's actually a section for that. But overall, right, just prepare. See if there's any more outdoor things. I'm gonna say just event stuff in general. Understand like the square footage and the shape and the size of your performance space. If you're able to, right, talk to the autocrat ahead of time, figure out exactly how much space you have to deal with, what field or room or whatever placement you're getting, what the layout is, where the chairs will be seated, how far away you're going to be from your audience, right? You might end up being up on a stage that's way back here and your audience is like super seated far away. Or you might end up where there is no stage and your audience is 5 feet from you. That's happened to me before. It's really uncomfortable. If you're not ready for that, right, it can throw your performance. Avoid anything that can throw your performance. Anything that can get in your head, anything that can distract you. Be prepared. Right. Just prepare. I'm going to say that a million times. This becomes the new hydration game. If I say be prepared, have some water. We'll be all sorts of hydrated by the end of this class. Okay. So I think generally that covers the indoor and outdoor. Online is a whole nother beast. It's a whole nother thing. One benefit though to online, if you're at a bardic and you don't know the words, you can look them up. You can be on your phone. You can have your camera off. You can be literally reading from your computer screen or having some sort of printout and you're just literally right in front of your face. So you might have a whole lot of songs that are available to you that you wouldn't normally have because they're hard to memorize. So that's one of those plus side things. The negatives to online performances, there's going to be a lot of circumstances where you're not going to be able to see your audience. And then it's going to make it very, very difficult for you to read your audience, to be able to know how they're taking it, what things that you need to alter on the fly to keep them interested, to grab their attention, if they're enjoying it, if they're bored or like, ugh, right? Sometimes you have no idea. As a performer, that can be very jarring. You can also just feel that you're like performing to yourself, right? These classes are like, it took quite some time for me to be able to do this. For me, it was a very hard concept to be just talking to this camera, right? I don't tend to do camera performance, so it was a very big adjustment period, and it's still something that I'm learning, trying to get, you know, more accustomed and better used to. But there's definitely still that little bit of awkwardness because I've taught so many years in person, and then all of a sudden that just stopped, which I'm sure a lot of you have been experiencing. You know, for those of you that are also teaching during this time. But even for those that are doing performances, right, there's a different feel to it, and that can be very uncomfortable. So not being able to see your audience is definitely going to be a thing. Other things you want to look out for, clipping. There's, depending on what you're doing, your mic settings and things like that, if you go from very soft to very loud, you might end up cutting out when you get to those high notes, right, where you're using more support, you're belting something out, right, for any of those vocal performances that you might be doing, especially with the bazillion bardics that we've been having lately, which has been amazing. But yeah, there's some points where folks don't have the adjustment quite set correctly onto their mics, and all of a sudden they just go to do this awesome thing. You're like, crap, I can't hear it. You're just that like, oh dang, I could tell that it's beautiful and they're nailing the crap out of it, and you can't see it all. You can't hear it. It's gone. Sometimes you'll also hear this with instrumental performance. Sometimes like instrumental will just cut out like immediately because you'll just be like talking and introducing your thing, and then you'll start playing, and then your mic's like, nope. So those are things, mic settings. If you are doing a performance where you have your camera on, right? Oh gosh, there's lots of things with that. Depending on the quality of your camera, depending on the distance, depending on the lighting, there's lots of things, right? Depending on your internet, right? You might end up freezing in the middle of your performance. You might end up like having this thing where like you stop and speed up and freeze at moments, and then like it goes really fast, or it can't handle movement, right, like that. There's lots of weird things. Your internet could just like drop in the middle of you, just like you're doing some performance on Discord, and all of a sudden it's like, nope, you're just gone in the middle of your performance. That's happened before. It's really uncomfortable and awkward. You just go back to like, okay, where did I leave off? Ugh. Yeah, it's very cringy. Right, lighting will affect things. Oh, what was the other thing? Oh, right. Be aware of what is in shot. Right? If you have like leftovers in a pile of garbage and like dirty laundry everywhere, if you have that in shot, you might not want to be showing everyone that, right? Just make sure you are aware of what is in your camera shot, right? Do a test, see what that's at, right? There's, right, for these classes, you can only see to here. So you can't see my cat Trey that is sleeping right here. You can't see my phone or my notepad or my medical devices. You can't see all the electrical stuff, right? Because that's not in shot. And that's intentional, right? There are things that are in arm's reach, but they're not visible. So that's always something to keep in mind. You can also play around with your space, right? We call it set deck, where you decorate your set, right? If you're doing a performance, especially, okay, if you're doing like a competitive thing, especially, go for it. Just go for it. Decorate everything that's in that screenshot. If you're a character, set deck the things around you that make sense for the space that your character would be in, right? There's also cool things that you can do with green screens, with things like that. Zoom, I know, has this thing where you can use a picture for your background. Though sometimes I'll say, like, it can get a little wonky with your shape and it'll look like unnatural. So that's something to consider. Be careful of filters, right? Or you'll do a whole entire piece where you've got like a giant like tongue hanging out and flappy dog ears. So that's a thing. Now, if you want that, then hey, there you go, options for you. But otherwise, right? You might not want that. Okay. So other things, just quickie before we move on. Know which platform you're doing it on. If you're doing something on Twitch, Zoom, Discord, Facebook Live, right? Those are just some options that you might end up doing performances on. It might be literally just doing a recording and sending that. The size of the recording, right? You might not be able to send through Discord or through Facebook due to the size of it, right? You might have to like upload it onto YouTube or something like that and then send them a link to the YouTube, which is also a thing you can do, by the way. There's all sorts of things that you should take into consideration, because you don't want to do a whole entire thing and then all of a sudden you have a deadline and you can't get it to load in time, right? If you're doing things where you have to upload it to something else, that can take several hours, depending on the size of what you're doing. So you might not make the deadline just because it's still loading. You did the performance, everything's done, you have it, but you can't get it online quick enough. So make sure you give yourself enough time, make sure that you know what programs you're using, and where you can fit and send things and what's going to be least risk of there being issues and whatnot. Also, again, this is one of those, make sure you read the rules carefully if you're doing any sort of bardic tournament type things, because, right, again, you might have time limit stuff, but they might also be like, you have to post this onto this specific platform, and you might not know how to do that. So ask questions, ask the event runner if they know a way to get it on there, or see if they can direct you to somebody that would know. But it's things that you're going to want to just kind of be prepared for. Be prepared! Oh, that's a drink. Okay. One more thing. Oh. For roleplay, because we have been doing a lot of quests and open RP and things like that. There's two basic forms you're going to see. You're going to see text RP and you're gonna do have voice or voice and video types of RP, they're going to be drastically different. You might also have something that's like a combination of the two, where things will be like described in text, or when someone else is doing like speaking with an NPC, right? You might be typing some random thing that your character might be doing at that moment, right? Where it's not like a major thing that's affecting things, but it's just you want to make sure that it is known that this thing has just happened, and so that you're not like interrupting the person that's speaking at the time. You might also have a thing where it's just like initiative type of stuff, like you would see like in D&D, because there's cool things like bots and things like that where you can roll dice. So that's usually through tech stuff, right? Where they'll be like, my character's gonna try to do this, and they're like, okay, cool, roll of this. Okay, it doesn't work, right? You might end up in a situation like that. Yeah. So I think like the basic things that we've been seeing a lot for RP stuff is Discord. Discord is really, really good for this, because you have voice, you can turn on video if you want to do a video thing, and it also has the text channels, so it's really easy to incorporate both. Right, again, it has the bots. Bots are great. You can do stuff with that. You can also post, like, for QMs, you can post photos of things that they see. You could have, like, a bardic bot going on so that you can have, like, mood music as you're questing, right? There's some really, really cool things you can do. So that's a thing. Other things to also consider is, the more folks you have in a questing party, the harder it's going to be to perform, and as a QM to organize and keep everything together, because there's going to be a lot of people just waiting around wanting to interact or do things, or they might just go like, well, I'm doing this, right? And it might throw something completely. So that can be more difficult. So try to keep in mind sort of the amount of questing party that you're dealing with. You might want to put caps on things. You might want to split groups into different sections. You might want to have multiple QMs to deal with like different rooms at different times, so that everyone does have a chance to quest and can be going, but it's a little bit more manageable. And everyone has more opportunities to actually do their performances. They can do their role play without having to wait for 20 people to go, decide to open the door, where that was like, I waited my turn to be like, yeah, no, I was going to open the door. Now I have nothing to do, right? That's a thing. So things to consider. Okay. Up until this point, does anyone have any questions? We've gone over who, what, and where. Also, just for funsies, what's your favorite animal? Post in chat. Okay. I'm gonna give it just a minute in case anyone has any questions. And also, I want to see what your favorite animals are. For me, I love horses and wolves. And obviously my cat. It could be a real animal, it could be mythological. Just, whatever you like. Love to see what is your favorite animal. Do the thing. Type this thing. Oh, this is a good moment to remind folks that may not be aware. There is a 20-second delay in Twitch. So I will see your message 20 seconds after you type it. So that's why I always ask for questions ahead of time, so that we could start kind of piling them up, so that when we get to that Q&A section, it'll be 20 seconds waiting for a question to pop up. So just to save time, throwing them up there, it'll be just easier for me to to grab them and move along. Okay, we'll move on at this point. Doop, doop, doop. Okay, why? Why do we perform? I'm going to break this into two really basic categories and kind of give examples for each. Recreational and competitive for Amtgard things. So recreational is going to be things like self-expression for entertainment purposes, and at times, for some folks, escapism. That's very much a thing. And then the flip side of that is competitive. Competitive is going to be something where you want to challenge yourself. It's going to be something where there's like a measurement of improvement, and in some cases the chance for feedback. Now, I will say that these things are not exclusive to competitive things, right? You can try to challenge yourself in a whole lot of things that do not have a competition base, right? You can have improvement outside of, but it might be a little bit easier in a competitive format. If you've lost every tournament you ever entered in and you start training up, you start making improvements, you took feedback really well, and all of a sudden now you're winning every tournament you enter, right? That is something that is a very easily measurable improvement. But if you are role playing and 3 months down the line you want to know if you've improved, if there's been noticeable improvement, it can be hard to know that. That might just be a introspective thing. But right on the feedback side, you can also ask if you've, hey, right, we RP a whole bunch together. Have you noticed, like, am I improving at all? Like, I used to have issues with this and this. Am I, like, breaking character less? Am I, emoting enough? Does that, right? You can ask for feedback, right? It's just a little easier in the competitive sense because they will literally give you the feedback, right? A lot of times whether you want it or not. So that is a thing. I will say, for those that have competed in the last Dragon Master, the Kingdom the Nine Blaze Dragon Master that I ran, something that I am gonna be hopefully getting going in more kingdoms for those that want to try this, is the I created this thing called the Armada Gallery system. Basically, it's 3 different options of entering, where you can just do regular normal Dragon Master, right, where you're gonna get a score, you're gonna get placement, you're gonna get display space, and you're gonna get a score and feedback. But the other options is feedback only, where you're not competing. You're not going to get a score, you're not going to get a placement, but you'll get feedback and you'll get display space. And the third one is showcase only. So no feedback, no score, no placement, non-competitive, but you get a space to display, right? For performers, right, the showcase one means that you can do a performance that's more than 5 minutes, right? If you have a 5-minute cap, which most tournaments you'll see do have 5-minute cap, that would mean that you could do a longer performance. You could do a thing that you normally can't do for a Dragon Master, and you can enter into that. There's also things like mixed media things that might not be able to be put in things, right? There's lots of different things you can do with that. Also, like, if you want to do a thing, get feedback, right? Or just be able to perform, but you're not very competitive, you really don't like that environment, that gives you the options to still do those performances, get your work out there, but not have to be in a competitive environment to do it. So that's something that I'm trying to do more. as well as the video feedback. That's something that I'm also very passionate about. Because it's very difficult to just get a small, blunt sentence of feedback, and you can't read the tone, and it doesn't have a lot of explanation and stuff. Sorry, I'm going way too much into Dragon Master tournaments. But it is easier for communication, right? This is going to bring us back in performance, when you can see the person that is emoting to you, right? If you can see their expression, if you can hear the sincerity in their tone, right? That is a very different thing than text, right? So for those doing text RP, right? Consider those things that, right? It might be a little bit more difficult to analyze somebody's tone, or explain well what your character is performing, doing, what their thing is. Any sort of subtle things that they do. Maybe they have like a little tick or a little habit or a certain mannerism thing that they do. It might be a little hard to convert that into text. So that's a thing. If you're doing, right, a vocal RP thing and you're not on camera, again, not being able to see facial cues, not being able to see mannerisms and body positioning, things like that, that can be a little hard for performance stuff. So again, just things to keep in mind. Okay. And one thing with the feedback, make sure that, how do I say this? There's a lot of judges that don't do performance stuff. Specifically, you'll see this a lot with vocal performances. If somebody isn't trained in that, instrumental also is a thing. So you might end up getting a lower score. You might receive feedback that isn't particularly helpful, or mentions things that are like, it might just tilt your head a bit. Be gentle with them. A lot of them are not trained professionals, right? For those of us that, have gone to school for this, go in knowing that that's a thing. It will inevitably happen. It can be very frustrating, but just go in knowing that's a thing, and don't take it too much to heart. I think that's the biggest thing, is just take it with a grain of salt, understand the situation, and just do the best that you can. You know in your heart of hearts when you did a good job. You know when you hit all of those things that you've been working really hard on, and you knew what were like struggling things for you. When a performer has a performance that they're really proud of, it's very obvious to them. So use that as your own feedback. Use the experience as having an audience to perform to. Try to just get more comfortable in that space, that environment, and again, just don't internalize the comments too much. That's right. Now you might have somebody that is like the exact opposite, where, right, are trained professionals, where they might be super critical of what you're doing, or down score you because they're super nitpicky. Take that with a grain of salt, right? Just the biggest thing is when dealing with feedback in any way, even if it's just talking to your buddy and going, hey, how do you think I did? Be in the mindset to be able to take the criticism. Because some of it will be constructive, some of it will not be. Some of it will just feel bad. So make sure that you don't don't read the stuff, you don't approach folks for it until you are in the right mind space to be open and receptive to those. If you're not in a good headspace and then you go ask somebody how you did and then they just tear your performance apart, that's gonna dig a bit and get under your skin, and then you're just gonna be ruminating on that the next time you perform, which will then inevitably have a spiral effect of then that performance will not go well because you're hyper focusing on the other thing instead of the performance. So, food for thought. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Let's get in questions through that. Okay. Now we're getting into the core of this. So this is the last slide. So after this, we're going to be opening up to an AMA. So again, if you have any questions, right, you can see what we're going to be going over here. If your question has anything to do with anything we've covered so far, if it is on this slide, or something completely different. If you'd like advice on something, if you want to try something out, if you would like tips on a specific thing, shoot me a message. Go ahead and type in chat. Right now is going to be the best time to start throwing those questions in, just to save some time. Help with flow and moving on. Okay, so let's get into it. How do? The first thing is going to be picking your piece or your character, depending on what type of performance you're doing. So things to consider for a piece. If you're doing something, let's say it's a vocal performance, you want to make sure that it's in your range, right? You want to make sure that it doesn't go too low for you and it doesn't go too high for you. There is basically, your range is here to here, and even a single note could be just one note too low for you, and you won't be able to actually hit it. Same thing goes with the chop range, right? There's also a point to where you'll go from your chest voice to your head voice. There is a break between those, and the sound is different. It's important that when you are going down to up, right, or back down, either way, whenever you're switching between the two, you want the volume and the fullness to be as equal as possible. You want it to sound like it's the same person singing. Sometimes what'll happen is in their lower range, their chest voice, it'll be strong, and it'll be that, and when they get into their head voice, it'll get really soft. And it's because they're not supporting their air, they're not projecting, right? They're thinking like reaching, which all of a sudden like actually like cuts it off, right? Things like that, you're gonna want to be conscientious of that. Also, there's some songs that you might have a hard time staying in key with. Some can be very challenging depending on how many sharps and flats might be in the song. If there's any modulations or key changes, right, being able to make those switches and be on key, and that might be a thing. If it is a strange rhythm, right, 4/4 is super basic, right? It's 4 beats per measure. That's measure, right? Depending on rests, the length of them, if they're some weird offbeat type of things, right? Some songs are going to be more challenging than others. Now, right, challenging yourself is fantastic. Being able to go and doing a really hard piece and nailing it, that's bonus points, right? That's going to be that's going to be a challenge for you. That's going to be an impressive thing to listen to. So if you can do it, yeah, absolutely go for it. But if you know you're not going to be able to do it justice, if you know that that it's just a little outside of your comfort zone of what you can realistically and confidently achieve, then you might end up taking a hit to your score that would not otherwise have happened with a piece that was more in your wheelhouse, right? By all means, like I say, practice them, try them at Bardics, but generally speaking, if you're doing a competitive piece, do something that you're very comfortable with. Do something that you know you can nail, and something that sounds impressive, right? Because like doing something where you are you're doing a crazy belting piece where it's just a showstopper, like you're just hitting them with sound because it's just forceful and it's just lots of emoting and emotional, and it's just really showing stuff. The same person doing a very easy, soft-spoken, not a character piece type of thing, right? It's not going to be as impressive. It's not going to get as high of a score because it's not going to be that same difficulty level. It's not going to be that big of, that draw, that wow factor, right? Just things to consider. Character. I'm going to say this is going to be, what are you comfortable performing? If you have a character that is like a monster, some sort of creature type of thing, right? And you do not feel comfortable with doing those types of body movements, getting on the ground, crawling, that kind of thing, being, hunched over, doing some, movements that are, more animalistic, right? It might be, vocally, any sorts of vocal sounds, right? Grunts and growls and whatever, creature type you might be dealing with. If that's not something that you're comfortable doing, then that's not the type of character that you want to be attempting, right? Now, again, play with things that are outside of your comfort zone. You can try these things, but they also don't have to be set in stone, right? You can try something and go, I don't really like that. And then you know that that's not going to be, your cup of tea for the future. So do things that are in your comfort zone, things that you're comfortable doing. I will say for folks that are having, like, creating their main characters, their PC characters, something that I find helps is start with a base of yourself in a way and exaggerate it, and then add things to it, right? So make it like a separation from yourself enough that it's not you, you're not playing you, but you're playing enough of you that you have a starting point, you have a comfort zone, and it's something that you can play around with and move around with and experiment with things where your base is something that's familiar and something that you can portray, right? If you do something that's like so drastically different from you, you might have some issues with, again, that comfort level. You might have issues with staying in character. You might have all sorts of complications, that it's just something that you can't relate to. It's just something that you can't really connect with, and you just have a hard time performing that way. Excuse me. Quick hydration. There we go. Practice. There we go. Be prepared. There. Now I have an excuse to drink. Okay. So yeah, just picking the right character is going to be really, really important. For any like type of show that you're performing, and even if you're doing a bardic piece, even if you're doing a Dragon Master bardic entry, choose the character. You can do character performances, right? One of my most like well-known pieces that I've done for tournament, and ended up doing for this giant crazy Kingdom Quest line thing for like a whole event, because it was Into the Woods themed, was the witch from Into the Woods. So it's a character I played in high school. It's something I'm super familiar with. It's something I super crazy enjoy. The vocal range is my sweet spot. And just portrayal wise, how she moves, how she sounds, her mannerisms, understanding the relationships between others, and how she sees the world and sees other people in it. That's very much my wheelhouse. So when I do perform as the witch, right, I will go the whole 9 yards. I'll use prosthetics. I'll use, styled wig, costume, right? Crazy nail things. I made a staff. The whole thing. Like, the whole thing. Not just me dressed as, Anne, right? The Admiral, singing the witch's songs, right? That breaks all sorts of immersion. Now, right, I can still belt it like no tomorrow, right? I can still do a good performance of those pieces, but it will be me doing those pieces. It won't have the same effect as if I look and act and move like the witch, right? And also, right, Act 1 witch versus Act 2 witch, for those that are familiar with the show. She's old and crotchety in the first act, and then she's young and beautiful, but still, ragey in the second act. So what you're dressed as, and physically how you hold yourself is different in those two acts, right? So depending on what song I'm doing, if it's an Act 2 song, it's gonna be a very different performance in Act 1. So take those types of things into consideration. Whenever you can do a character piece where you are dressed as the character, you act like the character, you move like the character, that's going to be bonus points. That's also going to be, right, again, like if you're doing some type of quest thing and you're performing as a character, looking and acting and moving the part, sounding the part, that is just going to build immersion. That's going to be a stronger, better performance. So you want to be able to commit as best you can, and be as believable as possible, which goes into my next point. Costumes, props, sets when applicable. I heard a phrase once where somebody said that a costume is the skin of a character. I will say that it is much easier to stay in character and to be in the right mind space and physically how you move is easier when you are portraying the character, when you look like the character, right? If you have a character, right, again, I'll say the witch at this point. If I have the staff, right, if I'm using that as a weight, something I'm holding my weight into, versus when I'm just using it for its, magical, finger wiggly stuff, that's going to be different from me just move around the space without it, right? I'm going to move differently. I'm going to move with it. But without that, right, all I have is, you know, that kind of, you know, types of movements, but I have to know how to move with it and without it. But having it is really going to help my, you know, me plug into that old lady kind of feel, right? If I'm wearing, you know, heavy things, lots of layers, and, you know, that's going to be easier for me to be in that sort of, you know, space. If I'm just wearing, you know, a t-shirt and jeans, I'm not going to really feel like I'm being the witch at that time, right? So in practice, right, it's gonna feel a little different than when you're actually like full out, right? The nails, right, that's something that you gotta get used to, because it's like 2-inch nails, you can't touch and grab and move things. Sometimes you need help, like, just like, can you open my water bottle, please? Because I can't, you know, claw it open. That was a thing. There's certain things that you need to get used to, things that are not going to be the same when you're wearing a full out costume, right? Especially if you have any sort of gloves or nails or claws or things like that, anything that's on your hands, that will affect just like everything you're doing. Especially, right, if you are an NPC or a PC that is wielding a weapon and you have some sort of hand things, you gotta really be comfortable with those weapon sets, with whatever thing that you're using, right? Again, practice, practice, be prepared, know that it's a thing. You don't want the first time experiencing those things to be like when you're in it, right? Your big performance moment should not be the first time you're ever trying out a thing. That's like, it's like a giant performance no. Now there's gonna be some times where you're stuck in that, where it's just like your questocrat literally goes, here, okay, deal with it, right? You've never fought in a mask before. Here's a mask, go out, have fun, right? Where it's just like, oh, this completely is like blinders. I cannot see anything in my peripherals, right? That's gonna super affect your ability to fight. That's gonna be, that's going to hinder the way that you walk. You might walk yourself right into a tree. I've seen it happen. So, that's the thing. So understand any type of mask kind of stuff. If you have like a helmet thing, right, it can affect your sound. If you have anything that covers your mouth, right, again, any type of mask type thing, a helm, right, how you're going to be able to be heard, how you're going to be able to, you can't do any sort of facial stuff, expression stuff with whatever's covered. It's just a whole lot of stuff that is going to be things that you're going to have to now deal with. Deal with. It's messy. It gets messy. Right, again, props. Props can be a very fun, easy way for your character to have what we call stage business. It's something for things that you can play around with, things that you can use, things that might have personal connection to you. Sorry, I'm seeing something. Looks like there is somebody that is not supposed to be here. Cool. Okay. Sorry, I've never had that happen before. What a strange experience. Welcome to Twitch. Okay, so, right, so props can be, right, you might have something that is, very personal to their character. It might be something, that, has very sentimental things to that character. It might be a crazy cursed item. you just really, really, really don't know. It's gonna be strange things that you just can play with. They're just things that you can play with, right? It might have a specific effect. It might be a thing where there's literally nothing to it, but it's all in that character's mind. Maybe they think that it's talking to them, but it's not. They're just crazy, right? There's all sorts of crazy things that you can do and things to play with, right? Right, if you're doing now any sort of, right, again, the bard performance kind of stuff, right, especially for competitive stuff, you're playing a character, right, having a staff, having like a cane, a thing that, you know, that can change how they walk and move and their mannerisms and stuff like that, how they're doing things, that can enhance, right? But one thing you want to be cautious of is that it doesn't become a distraction from the performance. If it becomes like a fidget spinner type of thing that you're just fidgeting with it, the judges are just going to be, in your audience too, right? They're just going to be focusing on you playing with the thing and not the performance, right? It becomes a distraction, right? All of a sudden all you're doing is looking at me mucking around with this thing, but any type of performance I'm doing is going to get lost and it's going to be a distraction, right? So you want to make sure that you are aware of things that you're just fidgeting with versus things that you are interacting with on purpose, right? Everything that you do with performance, it's intention. So you want to move with intention. And that's... Nope, that's too down. We're going to get to that. Yeah, so it's just going to be things that... you want to be aware of. Yeah, it's just gonna go into the next thing. Okay, so body, voice, choices, and awareness. This can go for, you know, for NPCs, PCs, and also for any type of character performance that you might be doing for various bardic stuff. Or performances, or whatever you're doing. Lots of performance stuff. Kind of fits everything. Right, again, you want to do things intentionally. If you have a character that's a pre-established thing, like from a show, right? You're gonna want to do your research, understand why they move and sound and act like that, and then also be able to portray that character as they are intended, right? There's a Shakespeare show where the character has like a hunch, right? Like a right. If you are performing that, like, just, you know, chest out, shoulders back with no hunch, you are not doing that character proper. So, right, if I'm doing the witch and I'm just sitting up straight the whole time and I'm just like with a fun, happy expression, right? That's not the witch, right? You need to know what those things are. Now, for characters that you are creating yourself, right? If you are doing an NPC role where you have free reign from the QM, or if they ask you to do something specific, right? Or if you're doing a PC where it's your character, you're creating it, right? Make those choices. Make those choices. I will say for anything that you are going to be playing regularly or often, repeat characters type of things, or your main character, choose things that you are not going to regret down the line. If they walk with a limp, that is going to be very uncomfortable very quick, because your body's not supposed to move like that, and it can put a lot of wear and tear, especially like on your hips and your knees and your ankles. That sort of disalignment thing, if you favor one leg from the other, it will just aggravate and overuse that one leg. And on the other side, you can end up with, right, not using the other one enough, and all of a sudden, you know, you're having muscle build issues, where you're building up muscles in one and not keeping up muscular stuff in the other. It's a whole thing. Right, if you are doing a voice, any sort of accent or sound thing, if it's rough on the vocal cords and now you're gonna be in Amtgard for 20 years, and you gotta do that all the time, that's gonna be rough. It's gonna be super, super rough. Right? For those that have ever watched Supernatural, fun fact, Castiel, the angel, was supposed to be a 1-episode character. So when Misha created that voice, that really low guttural voice, he thought it was for a character he would play once in a show as this 1-episode thing, and he'd never have to do it again. But the audience loved him so much that he became a recurring character. And like one of the main characters, basically. So we had to keep up that voice for 15 seasons, right? He was not ready or prepared for that. But he committed so early on, that was just it now, right? I was a scare actor on a haunted hayride, and played a witch. Not the same witch, different witch. But I had made a similar terrible choice. Very low guttural voice, and this was when I was still a music major, and for like the whole month of October, I'd go into my lessons just being hoarse and everything. They're like, "You have a recital. What did you do?" It was really, really bad. It was really bad. It was just this like, it was crazy guttural voice, like, it was like, "How are you doing?" Right? It was so just like, can't even do regs. The choker's too tight. Like, it was just, and I had to stick with that for a month. Like 3 nights a week in a row, every weekend, for a month, in the cold, in the rain. Like, it was so bad. So bad. My voice teacher was very, very upset with me. And I did have, like, a recital, like, it was something like around, like, the first week of November, so it was really, really bad. So, words of warning, avoid things like that, where you can't keep that up, where it's just gonna cause you all sorts of issues in the future. Do stuff that you can do easily, and that you're not gonna regret later down the line, right? If you have a character where you have lots of prosthetics, right? Doing that for every single field is gonna be nuts. Doing it when it becomes really hot and humid, it's not gonna work. Right? I ended up doing the witch for Keep Olympiad, and I used so much spirit gum. I used so much latex around the edges to keep everything down. And my nose was still slipping during the whole thing. And once I got to, just like when I was talking to the judges, I just went like, okay, we don't need this anymore. I just ripped off my face because I was just like, it just felt horrible. But there was literally nothing I could have done for it. I did every possible thing that I could. I used the strongest glues, and I used a whole bunch of other things to reinforce, but it was so hot and humid, like, it's not meant to be doing that. Like, it's not the environment for it. Like, 95 degrees and being humid, it's like, that was going to happen. There is nothing I could have done to prevent that. And that's just something you got to deal with, right? So if you choose that for your, like, regular character, the amount of time it takes is extraordinary. But when you start sweating, oh goodness, that's gonna get really messy really quick. And then also just like how long it takes to get it off, what it does to your skin, and how much stuff you have to use, removers and whatnot, to get it off is very harsh on your skin. I will say, just super random side note, if you ever do want to play around with like liquid latex and stuff like that, if you want to do just like simple scars and things, right? Like my main character, right? Anne has a scar thing that starts here, goes here, a little nick here, and then a cut here. And like it only takes me like 10 minutes. It uses very, very little amount of liquid latex. It's a very quick and easy thing to do. So I have no issue doing that like every time for my character. But there'll be some random circumstances where I can't. But again, those are rare. One thing you need to be aware of is that some people have latex allergies. If you've never really dealt with latex before, you might not know whether or not you have an allergy. So this goes really with like pretty much like all types of different makeups. What you do is you put a little tester piece on your hand. That way you're not putting on your face and all of a sudden having a giant reaction. So you want to test it on your hand first, just to see if you have any reaction, right? If you break out into a hive or something like that, you get a rash, any type of irritant, if it hurts, remove it immediately and do not put it on your face. Just know that that's not going to be an option for you. You want to make sure that you're going to do stuff that's safe, that your body isn't going to reject, right? So it's going to be really, really important that you know how your body handles different types of makeup and any like special effect makeup, especially, right? Spirit gum, stuff like that, right? Any type of thing that you're going to be putting on your face. Just try the tester first. It's also right. It might be an ingredient thing where you can find something similar that doesn't have the same types of ingredients that you are having an irritation to. Also, like, not when I say allergic reaction, like it's for some people it can be really, really bad. But for other people, right, just a little tiny. Oh, it's just the littlest little, thing. You still don't want to deal with that on your face. Right? It's not like you're going to go into anaphylactic shock type of things, right? You might get a little rash or a single hive, just one little hive. But that means that your body is rejecting it and doesn't want it, so you just don't want to push that. Okay, moving on. Awareness. Okay, so after you choose how your character is going to walk, how they are going to move, how they're going to sound, you want to be aware of those choices so that you keep them up, right? If you pick like some sort of accent and halfway through, a quest or something like that, or a performance, you start like losing the accent, if you're not conscious of it, if you're not like focusing on keeping it up, that's something that can break character. That can be something that's going to affect your performance, right? So you want to be aware of that. If you're doing, again, any sort of mannerisms, right, or body positioning, you want to make sure that you're keeping that up, that you are being consistent with that, so that you're not going to end up losing it at some point, right? Where you're walking with the hunch the whole time, and then you kind of do a stretch, and then you just kind of are now in this position where you just end up breaking that whole thing. The other thing you want to be aware of is things that you are not choosing to do. You'll have situations where you will make movements that you're not like aware of. They might be nervous things. You might start rocking. You might start tapping your foot along with the beat. You might start fiddling with your hands, right? You might look up when you're trying to think of your words. You might be blocking's next. Just gonna say this anyways. You might be just pacing, when your character is not a pacer, when that's not an intentional choice, right? There's some characters that are super nervous characters that you're pacing on purpose. That's actually a character choice. That is different than you pacing as you while trying to play a character that doesn't pace. So that's a thing. So it's just going to be being aware of what you're doing when you're performing. Now, this might not be as big with like NPC or PC roles. You're most likely going to see this a lot with like competitive bardic stuff, just because it's more stressful, it's more intense. You'll get more nervous. I'm just gonna go into the adrenaline thing. There's going to be things that are going to affect you, and they're just more heightened in a higher tension atmosphere, which competitive is, for sure. So that's just a thing. Okay. So blocking. Again, right? If your character is not supposed to be pacing, you should not be pacing. I see a lot where folks will arbitrarily walk over here, do a part. Arbitrarily walk over here, do a thing. And there's no rhyme or reason to it at all. When you're doing blocking, those are intentional positions. You are moving to this place on this beat, this word, this whatever. You are moving here at this point. You are moving over here at this point. And every time you practice and every time you perform, same thing. It is a repeated thing. You're always going to do the same because it is a choice. It is a blocked out, intentional action. You are moving for a purpose. There is motivation behind it. It's not just, I'm just walking around. Because again, if you're just arbitrarily walking around, that's going to be distracting to your performance. There's no rhyme or reason to it, so it'll be like, why are you just, nope, you're just there now. Okay, I guess we're just gonna, oh, no, you're over there. Why are you over there now? It becomes a distraction. You don't want to do things that are distracting, right? Like my hat. My hat is a distraction. So everything that you do, intention. And then practicing, right? Oh, sorry, no. Okay, let's move back to blocking for just a second. If you do a show, blocking is going to be critical, because a lot of times, especially for Amtgard performances, you are given a small area to work with. Your stage usually is very small, especially if you get stuck with an indoor location. If you have multiple performers in a single space, you need to know when everyone is moving, where they're moving, and when. Because otherwise, you're going to crash into each other. For performers that are doing movement performances, blocking is super, super, super critical. Because that's basically the entire performance. That's choreography, right? You have to know when you're moving, where you're moving to, how you're going to do it and when. These are super, super important. Something you also want to block out is how you're entering and how you're exiting. So how you are going to start, right? If you're going to go to the judges, announce your thing, go behind a curtain, and then walk out in character, right? You want to know that ahead of time. If you are going to do a thing where you don't have a curtain, you have nothing, you're literally just open space, making it clear of when you are starting and stopping your performance, when you are going into character, versus you just there, right? You don't want to be like, have a character that you're playing, right? Admiral Cash, I'm performing this piece of the witch. Okay, so we doing the thing as the witch now. Like, there's no break. There's no pulling apart my character from me, right? It isn't a clear, obvious start point. And the same thing is going to go with your ending, right? Your exit. You don't want to be in a situation where the audience goes, "Is that it? Do we? Oh, is there more? I don't. No, I'm just going to be awkwardly in silence because I don't know if it's done." Right? Like, having it be super clear when your piece is done, right? Are you exiting off stage? Are you going to just have a moment and break character and thank the judges, right? Like, you need to know how you are starting and stopping. And you want to practice that. You want to block it, and you want to practice it. Okay, so blocking. No, I just said that. Yep. Sorry. Okay, so that's blocking. Practice. Okay, practice. Oh. Be prepared. Practice is crucial for preparation. Okay. You don't want to practice in a way where you're going to create bad habits, muscle memory, memory issues, things like that. If you do a practice where you say like the first line or two, right? Like, okay, now I'm gonna go over here, right? I'll go blah blah blah, and then I go back into it, right? When you're actually doing the performance, you'll hit that point where you go, right, where in practice you just go, okay, then I say something, blah blah blah, and you'll go, I have not been practicing that part as much as the other parts. The other parts I have down flat. This part, all of a sudden, I haven't been practicing. Haven't been going through it. So you don't have it. That's going to be the point where you're going to forget your lines. That's going to be the point where it's not as rehearsed as everything else. You don't want that situation, right? How you practice is going to be important. If you have particular body movements, mannerisms, again, and you don't practice any of that, you're not going to build up the muscle memory of it. You're not going to feel comfortable in it when you do it for real, for the actual performance. Right? It's going to help with memorization. Memorization is going to be a big thing. If you can't remember any of your words, you don't have a performance, right? Cut and dry. Now, again, right, if you're doing a PC or an NPC role, that's going to be improvisation. That's a whole nother beast, which we'll, briefly go into that in a second. So anything that you do have like a scripted thing, do it full out. Also, if you have any props, if you're dealing with any type of scenery stuff, you want to practice with those things. You do not want to grab those at the very end and all of a sudden have a giant issue. If you have something like a skirt, right, or super baggy pants, something where, or cloak, right, something that could be a tripping hazard, something that's going to change your movement or impede it. You want to practice with those things. Even if like you don't have the full final thing, wear something that is similar. In theater, a lot of times what we would do is we would have practice items where like if our costumes were still being made and they weren't ready yet, right? Maybe they weren't, they weren't going to be ready till Hell Week, right? Sorry. Hell Week is your the week of the show. That's where you're going to be, you have all your costumes and props, and it's all the final stuff with the sets, the proper lighting, the sound, the music cues, and all of that, right? You're using mics for the first time, right? That's all the week of the show. But not Amtgard, so it's going to be different. No, I mean, if you're doing a show in Amtgard, right, again, I've done a lot of shows in Amtgard. That crucial endpoint, you're going to be wanting to have all of the costumes and props practicing through them. right, you might not get a lot of practice time depending on the performance you have, and if they are in different locations, right, you might have very little time. But if you are doing at an event, make sure that you actually have practice time with your actors and your performers before you go on and do it live. Make sure that you like have a couple of them scheduled in. Make sure everyone's there, make sure that everyone's prepared, and have them do it full out. Using the right props, using the costumes, doing the full thing, actually full dress rehearsals. That's going to be super, super important. You do not want them doing their first time with all of that during the show. Like, cannot express that enough. Super, super important. Be prepared. Remember to hydrate. Okay. Other things with practice. If you have like a mirror, that can really help you with any of the body positioning stuff. Something also you can do is record your practices so that you can see if, right, again, if you're doing any weird nervous tics, right? If you're rocking a bunch, if you're fiddling with something, that's all going to be easier to tell if you have, you know, the actual items and you can see them in practice. Additionally, practicing for an audience is big because it's is it next? Okay, stage friend adrenaline's next. Okay, I'll go over that last. You want to make sure that it's memorized, right? The best way to do that is to do it full out, do it in front of a camera, right? That's a good test to see if you've got it. Oh gosh, what else is there? I would say for if you do like Bardic performance stuff, go to Bardics. Practice your pieces at Bardic. That again will give you a chance to do it for an audience. Right, you might end up with like a smaller group or a group that you're super comfortable with, people you know, right? Versus a group of judges that you may have never met before, who make you nervous. Some people you just get nervous around when you perform. So it's just, you know, it's good to just have those practices in front of actual people, because it will be different, and it will affect you differently, which is, okay, I will go into the next point. Stage fright and adrenaline. Why you want to practice in front of an audience is because it's going to affect these things. Your body, when affected by adrenaline, will do a couple of things. You might shake. You might, your heart races. Your breathing might become faster. You will talk quicker. You will speed through stuff. You'll rush. You might get flustered and forget things. You might just get super stressed. You might just oof. So I'm going to give you a trick here. You don't want your adrenaline to trigger as you're going out, as you're going in front of the audience, and then you get hit with all of that. So what you can do is you can trigger the adrenaline prior. There's certain things that you can do. Something that I usually do, I'll open palm, I'll go here on my chest, and just give myself a couple of whacks. Sometimes just like the side of my leg. Right? Just, it triggers the adrenaline, right? Shake it out, jump up and down, right? Work it out. All of a sudden you've got that buzz. You're, you know. Your body will get comfortable in that. It will become like, okay, yeah, groove with it, right? Like, it becomes something that is comfortable. It pumps you up. It gets you excited, right? The adrenaline rush, right? That happens when you're about to do it in front of others, when there's something on the line, when you're right, there's that nervousness, that excitement, whatever that trigger might be for you. Adrenaline hits everybody, and it hits them in a very specific way. So if you're already in that state before you go out, right, it's not going to trigger after. You're already going to be in that state. That will help you when you go out there, because there isn't going to be a sudden onset of a bunch of stimulus and feelings and uncomfortableness, right? If you're already in it. So trigger it ahead of time, right? Some folks might just ditch just for somebody, just, swing a stick around with, however best it works for you. Because again, right, there's different ways that you can trigger adrenaline. Right? Run around, do something where you're going to trigger. But you're going to want to do it before you go on. So this also impacts stage fright. Some folks think that that adrenaline hit is stage fright, that they're doing it because they're scared and they're panicked. That's adrenaline. That's an adrenaline reaction most often than not. Now, you can have fear and worry and doubt. You might be hyperconscious, and you might have a thing about embarrassment. You're worried that that you're gonna make a fool of yourself, that you're gonna forget all your lines, that they're not gonna be impressed with what you do. There's lots of things that the mind is mean to you. It will tell you a whole bunch of things that aren't true, and it'll tell you things that will psych you out. Don't listen to your head. I know that's easier said than done. I guarantee you, I fully understand this. I've been there myself. There's, you worry. You have doubts and insecurities and things like that. The best advice I think I can give you is to disassociate from yourself. Commit to your character. Be in their mindset, be in their headspace, right? Trigger adrenaline ahead of time, so that's not a sudden thing. But go out there as someone else. Have that person in your head. Have them in your physicality, your movements. What I'll say also is commit. Commit to your performance. If you're afraid of like making a fool of yourself, something like that, you look more foolish when you don't commit to a thing, when it's very obvious that you're self-conscious and you're only giving it like 10%, versus go out there, be exaggerate, be a ridiculous person, go out there and go, ha-ha, right? Just have fun with it. Commit to it, right? If you're going to do it, do it. Like, do it out. Be big, be bold. And just enjoy the moment. Be present in the moment. Don't worry about the after. Enjoy the performance. The biggest thing is you should perform because you enjoy it, because you love it. If you're doing this because you think someone else has an expectation that you need to be doing this, if you're not doing it for you, don't do it. If you do not enjoy the experience of performing, then don't put yourself in that scenario. If you don't enjoy performing in front of an audience, don't do it in front of an audience. If you don't enjoy the competitive aspect, don't do it competitively, right? If you just like the for funsy performance stuff, there's ample opportunity for that, and you should be doing that for sure. You do not need to be doing competitive bardics. You don't. And that's again why I really hope the gallery system can get some traction going, because there's a lot of folks that don't get venues. They don't get that performance space and time. So they'll have some amazing set built up, right? Like they might have a collection of pieces, right? They might have one there that they've just put their heart and soul into. It's a ridiculous amount of work. But just be really uncomfortable doing it competitively. And those pieces won't have a place, right, to show those off. So I think it's important that we create more spaces for folks to be able to be seen and heard, so that, you know, they can be recognized, right? For bardic performances, you shouldn't just be assessed for like dragons if you're doing it competitively. You should be able to be assessed in different ways and different formats, and there should be more performance opportunities that can be viewed, in my opinion. Yeah, competitive is not for everyone. It's not. And we shouldn't be forcing that on everyone else. Now, for other people, they thrive on it. They love the adrenaline rush. They love challenging themselves. They love seeing the improvement of them going up in rankings. And if that's your thing, yeah, go for it. I say one tip I would say for that, if you are getting into it, the first tournament you ever do should not be a kingdom or interkingdom gigantic crazy tournament. Start lower. Kind of find a base, like where you're at, right? Enter a Shire or a Barony tournament, right? Get used to the environment. Get used to getting judged, right? Having a score be written, having feedback be given. That might be unfavorable. That might be just downright mean at times, depending on who you get. It's a toss-up. So it gets worse the higher you go up in tournaments. So you want to make sure that the first time you ever do it competitively is not at the highest level, because that's just going to be really discouraging. Now, you might be like absolutely at that level, but it can still be a bit jarring. It can be a bit jarring at that level. They're just really intense at that point, and can be very, very critical, score and comment wise, right? So if you go up gradually, it'll just be an easier bullet to take, I'm gonna say. Now, again, to each their own. That might not be a thing. You might not choose to do that. Whatever your preference is. This is just one of those random tips and advice that I learned along the way, that I have personally found to make things a little easier, and it's what I've seen with folks that have gone into the competitive scheme, and them doing it lower levels first versus doing right, like Olympiad being your first tournament is rough. Okay. Did you write it on? Okay, reading your audience. Again, this is one of those things that's very hard online. But when you are able to do this in front of a live audience, reading the audience, look at how they are reacting to you. If they look like they can't hear or understand you, it's a good chance they can't hear or understand you, right? Articulate, project. If they seem bored, right? Give it a little bit more gusto, right? Be more present. Just emote more. Pull them in. If they look like you're just too much, maybe dial it back a bit, right? Like, you can just gauge your performance and how much of your performance you're doing based on your audience's reaction, right? If you are screaming in their face and they are having a very obvious physical reaction, back it up, right? Give it space, dial it down. But it's just easier for you to know where you are if you're just watching and kind of seeing how they're reacting. Now, if they're super engaged and there's like, right, you know you're doing good, right? You can then, in your mind, relax a little. Just know, okay, I got this. They're enjoying this. I'm doing a good job. Keep going, right? No, don't ruminate on it. You want to stay in character. You want to be focused on your thing. But it's a good just mental thing to go, yes, okay, I'm nailing this. Okay, I got this, right? Because if you're worrying about that and you're just trying to read them the whole time, you're not going to be focusing on your character. So it's good just to get that out of the way right off the bat, and then just enjoy the ride for the rest of the time. Also, I'm going to say just real quick, if you know your audience ahead of time, you can choose your pieces and your character stuff based on your audience. Because there's going to be some audiences that are more appropriate for XYZ versus others. Some types of things, this group will enjoy it and this group will not, right? So it's knowing your audience and being able to do things for the right environment and scenarios, right? It's going to be important to the success of your performance. If you are doing something with very serious judges, very super trained, maybe everyone's like doing like our like SEA laurels type of situation, right? Doing a super easy more modern piece, something that's very jokey, tongue-in-cheek, memey type of stuff, might not go over so well, versus doing a classical period piece that, you know, you are performing seriously. Right? Now, if you have a rowdy drunken bardic doing, you know, a pub song with a call and a response, right? That's going to go better in that type of environment, right? If you're doing feast entertainment, right? If you are supposed to be the entertainment, the distraction, the please hold while we get feast ready, you're gonna want to be pulling their attention. You're gonna be wanting to grab them. You want them. You want to be entertaining. You want to be big and bold and do things that are fun and, you know, drawing them in. If you're doing like really quiet, somber stuff, that type of group is just to be like, I want to eat food. Let's get court. Like, oh gosh, let's just go, right? That type of performance might not go over so well. So it's going to be different depending on your audience. So picking your pieces for your venue, for your audience, is also something maybe to consider. Okay, at this point, let's go into questions. If anyone has anything in particular, anything they'd like me to clarify, explain, repeat, rephrase, or have any type of thing that you're looking for advice or tips or anything that's like super specific, now is the time. I do have one question in here. What are people looking for in the voice choices to get a good score? For competitive vocal bardic stuff, I'm gonna say stuff that's impressive is going to be things that show your range. If you have something that you can emote really well, something that has that wow factor vocally, right? I'm gonna say like if I do I have a slide for this. So for Keep Olympiad, I did an Into the Woods little play, basically, where I took two main pieces of the witch. I used a narrator, and I took the Act 1 ending to close everything up, to make it one cohesive story. It was just the witch's story. So it was the witch's rap and Stay With Me. So how this worked, right? The first part of this, right, was more of a jovial thing, but still had to be, you know, she's scary and intense, right? That's me, the staff, right? And I needed to be very just, you know, but it's, that particular piece is more playful. It's more playful. But what I have here, right, is we are all wearing costumes. I made the props. I made the stage thing, right? Right, for the other part, right, which was Stay With Me, right, this one is more vocally demanding. This one has a lot of emotion, a lot of strong belting, right? It has more of a vocal range. It's more difficult, more challenging, right? If I had just done the witch's rap, vocally, that's not a hard thing. It's like a speech song, right? Like a speech sing thing. But Stay With Me, right? Vocally, is more challenging. You're dealing with head and chest voice, and oh boy, do you emote. You're just, you know, pouring your guts out. So vocally, right, that is more impressive. That's a better scoring piece. If I had just done, you know, if I had to choose between the two songs, Stay With Me would have been a better choice, because, right, that is going to show a lot more emotion, a lot more range, more difficult choice, and has more of a wow factor to it, right? So there are things to consider. I will also say, right, this performance in particular was an experiment to see how ridiculous bardic entry could be. I wanted to see just how far I could go. And the answer is pretty nonsense. So consider not just the song you're doing, but the production value. Everything else that's going into it, right? Have a full costume, right? I have prosthetics. I did wig work. I made all of the accessories. I made all the costumes, right? I've got the nails, the prop. I made the stage. It is collapsible, which, oh my goodness gracious, folks, those things are amazing. Look how small it breaks down to, right? If you can fit like a polearm in your vehicle, these are super easy to travel with. And they make entrances and exits very easy, very clear, and it gives you a better idea blocking wise of sort of just the environment that you're in, right? I've used them for all sorts of performances at this point, and they really just help go, okay, this is a stage, right? Just, I know where, kind of that outline of, okay, this is the curtain, right? That stereotypical performance space. All right, but then for this, right, again, I did all of those things. I had a pyrotechnic effect. I threw fire from my hand in 2 different sections in this show, right? That was magic I had to learn, right? These are all costumes, multiple pieces, full 9 yards, right? I had a swatch book to show all of the textile choices that I made and how they connected. Like in the write-up, I went over the color choices and the textile choices and how the relationships between characters, how that was matched intentionally. I gave the write-ups in this scroll case that I painted and did all of the internal design stuff and sculpting, whatnot. I had a time-lapse video that I made the CD case for of the prosthetic work, so they could see the full everything that and how long and how many steps it is to do all the prosthetic work. And I had like a portable DVD player, like a battery operated portable DVD player for them to see it with, right? I wanted to see how just nonsense. And yeah, you can just go so far. You can go so far into it. So I would say, even for just doing a vocal piece, consider everything. Consider everything. What you're wearing, how you're moving, the space you're in, how you, like, if you have blocking, intentional choices again, right? Not just standing still and singing a song, right? No, yes, you can do that, by all means. But things that are going to up your score, those bonus points, is going to be scope and scale, right? How much you put into it will it's not, if you don't have those, I'm not saying people should be doing this. This was drastic and this was nonsense. This was a playing around test to see just how far I could go with Bardic, because a lot of the Bardic performances I had seen over the years would be folks in t-shirts and jeans just standing there singing a song, and they'd be doing character songs too and just were not in character whatsoever. So this was an experiment for me, and so much fun. Like, oh my gosh, it was a blast. But not something that would be normal for every type of Bardic performance. So I would just say play around with all of your options, and understand that this is your base score, right? If I sing this piece, this is about this level. I'm gonna get something around here if I do it right and I do it good. But if I add this, if I do this, if I incorporate, this, that will bump my score up. That will give me bonus points. So think of it as bonus points. The more work you put into it, the more that you up the ante, the more bonus points you can get. Because there's going to be a point to where if you just sing the song as is, right, it's decent thing. You're going to get a solid this kind of score. But it might not be like above and beyond, hitting, a 10, right? There's other things you can do that can enhance your scores, right? So scope, scale. But yeah, and again, right, for vocal, again, the big things that they're going to be looking for is it in your range? Does it sound good for your voice type? How do you handle your transitions, right? If you're doing, head and chest voice. Do you have good breath support? Are you projecting? Do you have it memorized, or are you forgetting your things the whole time? Are you breaking character as you're going, right? Are you going, oh, nope, hold on, sorry. Okay, going back into the song, right? Like, don't break. Oh goodness, don't break. They're going to look for you to not break character. If you have a flub, right, they're going to judge how well you handle the flub and keep going, right? So it's, right, there's other things too, right? What they're going to be looking for is, are you rocking? Are you just slumped over? Are you not, like, holding yourself up? Having a good body position that can affect how you're singing, right? There's a lot that is going to go into it. They're going to be looking for how in tune you are, right? If you're super flat or super sharp, right, that's going to ding your score for sure. Oh gosh, what else is there? Yeah, and then I would say just how vocally challenging is it, right? Is it a super easy, folk song or shanty that's just like the same thing? It's, right, a super basic song where there isn't a lot of emotion, there isn't, not to say that there aren't ones that do have emotion and good vocal range, but like a lot of them can be very simple songs, right? Are you singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in t-shirt and jeans and rocking a bunch and then forgetting the words and then stopping your performance going, oh crap, hold on, wait a second, no, I'll think of it, right? That's what they're gonna be looking for. That is what they're gonna be looking for. I think that pretty much covers it. Does anyone else have any questions? Anything else? One thing I didn't get too much into, I'm gonna just, because, right, 20-second delay, I'm gonna quickly go over improv tips. If you have questions, now is the last chance to do so. There is a type of show you can do that is called Commedia dell'arte. This is, done a bunch of these. These are really good ones to do for putting on shows for Amtgard, because they are improvisation based. Each mask represents a particular character type. Each character type has a very specific way that they carry themselves, how they talk, how they act, their motivations. Each one has a very specific type. So you can take these character types and take the improv aspect of it and then create a storyline. How you're going to start, what is the climax point of it, and then how is it going to end, right? How do you get in between those points? So when you're rehearsing it, right, you create the story, you create the characters and the scenario and the situation and the storyline, and then you basically go and say, okay, with you have X amount of time to start and then get to this point. Your task is to get this. You work out blocking, right? But the words themselves can be improvised. So this way you don't have to worry about your characters having to memorize a script, right? Pyramus and Thisbe was another show that I did. because the show within a show, so it's a very small little show, but it's Shakespeare. So memorizing lines in, right, Shakespearean, that old English, can be very challenging. Very, very challenging for performers. It's, when you forget a line, it's very hard to improvise lines to get yourself back on track, because it becomes very obvious that you are speaking modern English. So that's another thing, right? The benefit of commedia dell'arte is, if you don't really know where you're going, you're making it up anyways. So you could forget kind of the sort of lines that you kind of had in mind that you've been practicing with, and you can change up the words a little bit here and there every time you do it, because it's just a matter of get to point B, right? So you just have a story, right? For this right here, I was the narrator, right? So I'm off to the side, and then there's the two lovers and the individual that they are in love with. So literally had the same character, going for the same person. They had identical masks, right? Identical garb. It was a whole like running thing of who the real one was, right? It's stuff like that. It's stuff that you can play around with. But it's very easy just to be like, okay, you have a character that is obsessive about this, walks and talks like this, and the story, right? This was Commedia dell'Arabia. This was an Arabian Nights themed commedia show, right? Where we took different stories from Arabian Nights and combined it into one big story. So, like, point A to point B, there's a whole entire thing. We had a whole thing where you see the little black curtain behind them. There was a puppet show in it, and a whole gag about you know, the thing with the 40 Thieves with the opening the door with Open Sesame. They couldn't figure out how to open the door, so they decided to go and have a picnic, and they just had these rolls, and some of them had sesame seeds, and they just kept on saying sesame, and every time they did, it would open, and they'd say sesame, and it would close again, and then they go and look back, and it was just, like, still closed, and then they just kept on doing this random bit, right? But the whole thing's improvised, but they know that they have this prop, they need to talk about it, they have to say sesame this many times, and then go interact. So it's like, they knew the X, Y, and Z, but how they talked about the sesame seeds, what they were saying about it, and, like, all of that's improvised. So, again, right, you make a theme, you make a story, and you can kind of just fill it in from there. So, just, these are some very, very easy things that you can do for creating shows. Because otherwise, right, doing a full 3-act show for Amtgard is not particularly realistic, especially with how events work, how much time we have, the space that is allotted to us, and then dealing with the elements, dealing with lighting and things like that, and how much time you have for rehearsal, and a lot of times you are dealing with folks that have never performed before in an acting sense. They've only done LARPing. So they've never had to deal with lines. They've never had to deal with blocking, moving around other people in a very contained space that is a repetitive thing where it's planned out, it's prepared, and you do it at the same time, right? We move around each other all the time in quests, but that's random and motivated, and we do whatever, right? There's fighting and stuff, but not on this beat, you're moving here. On this line, you're moving here. You must walk in this way. You have to do this. You have to do this, right? It's usually not how it's done. So that's something to consider. Okay. I think I've rambled enough about that. So I'm just one last check. And then we will end the class. As tradition, the 20-second silly dance, because again, we do have a 20-second delay. I started this in the first class that I ever did. This is oh my gosh, how long's it been? It's been over a year, I think. So we always do the silly dance. I've been doing bi-weekly classes for a year. We do the silly dance because we don't know how to waste 20 seconds of time. Save performance. And we always end with jazz hands because of Rajavia, because it was a random thing that happened, and now I do it all the time. So, remember, it's okay to be silly, it's okay to be out there, just do it big and bold and enjoy yourself. And my secret is that the 20-second dance is never actually 20 seconds, it's actually a lot shorter. But that's between us. Okay, if there's no other questions, I think we're good. We'll wrap it up. Again, folks, remember to sign in for credit. If you were here, it's been a whole long time, so you certainly earned that credit. Go get yourself a credit. I wanted to thank again the academy that invited me to perform. See, I'm in constant perform mode. That allowed me to teach at the event today. I just wanted to give my heartfelt thank you. I very much appreciate it. Thank you to everyone that is here right now watching this class live, and thank you to anyone that watches this class in the future. Much appreciated, folks. Much appreciated. Thank you. I have been Admiral and Cash. This has been Performance in Amtgard with Admiral's Academia at the Spring Medieval Academy. Have yourselves a fine evening. Take care of yourselves and take care of one another.